I will call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Full house tonight. We'll have roll call, please.
Councilmember Waller,
Yes.
Falvey,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Ellison,
Yes.
Mayor Pete.
Yes. I'd like to make a motion to add to the agenda item C under ordinances and resolutions. You have a hard copy at your, it was emailed to you and you've got a hard copy at your place. Resolution accepting an updated proposal from Precision Concrete Cutting.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, citizens' comments. We have Brian Herman is going to talk to us about the UMM softball complex.
Thank you very much. Good to see you here. So, I just wanted to set up and thank you for giving us a few minutes just to talk about two things I wanted to talk about related to this. Number one, to kind of tell you where we're at, where the progress is at, because of your partnership in this. Number two, talk to you a little about the success so far, some of the numbers, and then number three, kind of what we see as next steps and where we go. So, feel free to ask questions as I go along, so I've kind of tried to keep it kind of high level, but we are right now just finalizing the rest of the concessions. We hope to have occupancy here relatively soon. We had to do a lot of electrical work to get it all centralized on the building, and so that should happen here in the next week or so, actually probably a couple of weeks, so we'll get it all done. So, all the building is done. We need to put lights on the two fields that are there. Right now, because of where the project is at, we need to update the joint use agreement, because it'll go over $1 million, and so the regents of the University of Minnesota need to sign off on any joint use agreements that are over $1 million. They reserve that right, so it'll go in front of the board as a consent agenda item in September 9th or 10th, I think is when they'll look at that. So then we'll have to give updated joint use agreements for us to be able to put in the works. So, but like I said, I wanted to start off by just thanking you for your leadership in helping us get this project off the ground and get it rolling. When I look at my counterparts across the system, and this is unique in the fact that the city, the university, and the school district come together, work together on a project, and to me, it's exactly what we need in the fact that it allows us to use a facility for all summer long. It's not just the university facility that gets used until May 15th when we have commencement and then sits empty, and it's not just a thing that the high school uses for the few months and then it sits empty. It really gets a chance to be able to use, I don't want to say year-round because it isn't year-round, but it is for the greatest part of the summer. So just some updates on the number of people who have played on it and the number of teams. So the high school has 10 varsity games on there, and then they do an 18 tournament. They have JV games on there, C squad games on there, and then they played 6 postseason games on there for Section 3, so in two different weekends. So you can see there are 66 athletes from 7th grade through varsity that use it. So that's really impressive, and hopefully in the future they'll be able to host some junior high tournaments on there as well. For the university, we have between 28 and 30 athletes on our roster for this 21-22 school year. There will be 19 weeks of practice on there. We'll have some double headers, so 8 to 12 games, and we'll host a UMAC tournament. Coach Penny Roy will also be hosting a fall league there as well, so she coordinates it, and we have usually between 4 and 12 teams. It depends on the year. Obviously, once people come and play, they get a chance to see the fields and the level of play that attracts. I think the real big success story is and Tony was able to provide me numbers from the Morris area community education and rec. Elementary softball had 117 participants this year from 3rd grade through 6th grade. And remember, they're not just kids from Morris, they come from the area towns and play. They play 55 regular season games in 19, so they play 74 games basically in 3 months. So from the middle of May to the middle of July. Little League, which is K through 2nd grade, they had 86 participants this year. They used all 4 fields, Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays during the middle of the day. So, and then the 18U fast pitch, they had 10 teams that played in here. So there were 144 players that came once a week in July and August. So 14U had a league, and so these are 14 years and older, or 14 years and younger. And so these are, they had 9 teams that played in here, 2 from Morris and 7 from other communities, for 132 players that played in that league. They had a fast pitch camp here this year with 107 players, and then the 12U had 72 players in that league as well. So you can see the number of teams, so 1 from Morris and 5 from other communities. We kind of summed that together. So there were 658 athletes that played on that field. There's a little bit of duplication, but really not that much duplication between those. For a total of 216 games, 20 teams that came from outside the Morris community. And this was just because I wanted to kind of do the back of the napkin, because something that you said, Councilmember Wohlers, is, you said, we don't have a lake, so how do you get people into town?
Yep.
If 2 people came to see those 658 players, which if some of you who have been out there, it's sometimes way more than 2 people that come and see some of those athletes. Sometimes you have 4 to 6 to 8 people. So that's 1,316 people if they just came and watched them once. A lot of these games, they're here 2 times a week. Sometimes, sometimes they have 1 player here 1 day a week and then 2 times for the other week. So sometimes they're in Morris 3 days a week. So, it's also just been really successful. The 10U team got 1st in the state. The 12U team was 2nd in state, and the 14U team was 2nd in state as well. So it's been, again, for me, that's what's impressive. And as a facilities manager, this is exactly what I want to see, that it gets used a lot, right? I mean, there are players on there all the time, and that's exactly what we need. Kind of the fiscal update. So what we've expended to date is $977,000. So when I came and talked to you, our budget was about $771,000. COVID did not help us with the cost of materials and the cost of excavation and the cost of copper being 80% more than what it was the year before. And it just, everything cost more. We could have delayed everything, but I think to be able to kind of push forward and be able to have the project and have a successful year on there, I think was important. Equal shares came, 150,000 from the school district, 150,000 from the city, and then 150,000 from the university, and the rest was from private donations. So that combination, again, it's very unique in the fact that we're able to come together and work together on such an important project. So, phase 4, this is what we're looking forward to, and again, we call these in different phases. The 2 fields, so I don't have a pointer, but I will stand here. These 2 fields are constructed, and as well as this press box, and most of the concrete around. So the next phase, we call it phase 4 because when I came and presented to you the first time, we talked about doing this in 4 phases. Phase 4 would be to add this 3rd field. We have an existing field here that I think we would leave, and then we would do a gravel parking lot. And we need to install the batting cages, and then we'd make an intramural field in that space right next to that existing field. One of the things when we started to do the work, we decided to just leave that ag line there. And it actually has worked out really well. In fact, they even played a few games in there just because it's a good place to practice and warm up for the teams when they're here. So when you're hosting a tournament or when you're trying to keep things rolling. So what would be included in phase 4 would be the field 3, the parking lot, lighting for everything, and then the intramural field. And again, that's virtually there right now. We just need to do a little bit of grass work and different things like that. So the financial needs, so to finish the project, so phase 4, lighting and field would be $670,000. The school district, about a month ago or so, committed to $225,000. University would commit to $225,000. So that's where we're at right now. We, the next steps is if to move forward, we would need to secure the funding for phase 4 before we can start the construction. If we were able to secure it for fall, we would start construction this fall, hopefully being able to be ready for spring. And that's kind of where we're at trying to do in the decision-making process. So, and like I said, I just wanted to thank you for your support. The unique partnership that we were able to have in the city of Morrison, be able to kind of combine and do that. Again, it's beneficial for the city in the number of visitors that come to town. And I can speak from experience, when you go to another town for a baseball, softball tournament, you do not leave with the same money in your wallet as you did when you left. So it costs money to be there. Again, I think that's a benefit for us. And it's a benefit for the school district. Obviously, it raises the profile of the school district and also the university. It's helpful to have people on campus. So I'm just open for questions that people may have, or if there's anybody else that wants to comment.
Well, it seems like it's getting used a lot. That's, you know, especially for community ed and all that stuff in the summer leagues. That's really nice.
I attended a lot of those little league games there. And Brian, as you know, they're out, that new field is nice, by the way, but any plans for shade? It gets, well, this summer was hotter than normal, but it's pretty intense there. What are your plans to deal with that?
Yeah, so the plan would be, in this space here, our plan is to put in some netting that will give it a little bit of shade, but also some softball protection from foul balls and different things like that. So the fencing is quite a bit taller, which is good. It's much safer. Our biggest concern and why we started this is this field here, the backstops are so low that you hit a foul ball and it goes right into the trees, and it's really challenging. It's got shade, but you couldn't really get hit with a ball. So the goal for this, we would try to minimize removing any trees. There are a couple here that would go, but we'd try to minimize that, so we'd save most of the shading and different things like that. And hopefully we'll have to try to put some sunshade in there. We'd also want to plant some trees potentially in between some of those to be able to have a few more. So take a little bit for them to be shade trees.
Okay, thank you.
Just looking at that, the parking is gonna be where that north field is along the road now?
So the goal would be, we have some access here, mostly for accessibility, and then so to be able to turn around and drop off. This is directly across from the parking lot at the university, so ideally people would park here. We'd like to limit parking to at least, and this is still in the works, but to one side of the street, not both, because there's a lot of cars there when people park on both sides.
So that's what I just trying to figure out, looking at it, if there's room to get more parking on that side of the street, just looking out there this summer with all the traffic that's been out clear to the water treatment plant, that if at all possible to have more parking with people with young kids having to cross that busy street, that we've had complaints and people just questioning that, and just the thought on that possibly.
The goal would be, I think, is if we constructed this, people would have the natural plan of being able to park in these parking lots. It's much safer for them to park in this parking lot, and then there's only one street to cross, and we can control that intersection a little bit better. So that was probably the challenge this year, was just everybody parking in both spots. We had a lot of games up there, and so if we can use the university parking lots, would be ideal.
Yeah, it's there.
Yep. So,
Thank you.
All right.
I know other teams that would come would also really compliment the field and how nice it is and how nice it will be. That's always huge, and a big shout out to any community that has complex like that at the start of it too.
Yeah, it truly has been a successful project, and I give a lot of credit to our FM, our facilities management team. They did a lot of work on it, so really kind of shepherded it along, and they did a lot of work to get it all ready. We were fortunate that the weather allowed us to have grass there to be able to play most of the high school season there, so it was good.
If I could add something, I go to a lot of different communities, and just from the West Central Conference, the schools that are there, they're just amazed the number of young kids that we have playing on our fields in Morris in the summer. And I just talked to a guy from DeGraff, he has a business in DeGraff, and he goes, I can't believe the number of fields you have in Morris and everybody's on them. He said, they're busy all the time. And I think that is such a strength and a plus for our community to get people into town, because all these people come into town, they're here at 5 o'clock, you know, they're buying stuff after we're done, they're, I mean, it's just great for our community to have this many kids from out of town come and play. In Heather's League in the fall, in our community ed league that we have, they're coming from McRae, from Alexandria, from Clinton, Graceville, Wheaton, Ortonville. I mean, these are just towns in the past that have come, West Central. So it's been a great strength for our community and for our city. So thank you for your support.
Thank you for your work. I know you put a lot into it.
2 decades.
Really, that's all?
Yeah, it's something we can be proud of. From the Eagles Ballpark complex now to all the way down to this, and I think it just really helped solidify our whole program, so good job.
Yes, any other questions or comments for Brian or anyone?
If you have any, feel free to reach out to me.
Will do. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Any other citizen comments to come before the council? Diane?
This year we were planning on selling our home on 208th Street, which is the same basically as East 7th, just
Right.
past Chiswick Field. This area was annexed probably, I'd have to go back and check, 10 to 15 years maybe ago, into the city to help increase the population for positive benefit to the city. In my area, the houses were built in the 60s, 70s, and across the street, there's some that were in the 90s, with all having their own well and septic systems. Many houses have replaced their sewers. Some had to add 2-3 times to their drain fields. And to some of the original systems, there's still open systems out there that run into like a back creek that goes kind of out to the Palmatier River. We had a purchase agreement on our house from a buyer that required the sewer to be inspected. We purchased this property 5 years ago. It was a foreclosure house. And we gutted the outside, inside, added a rear family room, finished the basement and an egress window. The inspection of the house was fine, the appraisal was fine, but since we smoothed out the dirt from the family room over the backyard, the sewer inspection failed, even though it works, and we pump the tank every 2 years for solids. So the state of Minnesota was reported to, and we have 10 to 18 months to put a new system in so we can sell our home. The estimate we received as a designer came out was double of the next door neighbor last year that put one in. It came in at $24,500. It was also mentioned that when the gravel trucks and the tank trucks come in on our 2-year-old driveway, that we'll probably need to resurface that driveway. And we called Riley's, and that's gonna be another $6,000 or $7,000 again to reseal the driveway. In the paper, I read where there was some infrastructure money given to the city or county. I wasn't quite sure, and maybe they could run the new water sewer out to the county garage and possibly 5 houses on that Northridge Drive. 7th Street is a heavily used road with lots of commercial truck usage. I told people, come and sit at the end of my driveway at 6:30, and you're gonna hear Riley trucks, empty Riley trucks going by, and, the concrete, vault company going by. And it's extremely loud some days. I don't need an alarm clock for 6:30, so. I wanna thank you though, 2 weeks ago, they did fill in the expansion cracks and, potholes that are there. And talking about the road there, going to Chiswick, we have been at a ball game, in another town, and they wondered why the roads going to the ballpark at Chiswick are so terrible. So that was a comment, so. My husband was on the Darien Township Board for over 30 years and remembers the meetings, discussing the annexation of our area, and distinctly remembers, that there was a verbal agreement back then that maybe water and sewer would eventually be available. We believe that the time is now, the road needs, replacing. I talked to Blaine, and he mentioned that he could apply for federal and state monies, but that it would be a 3 to 4 year process. I'm asking that the city start the process sooner. There's gonna be more sewer, failures. My well is 60 years old, it's in great shape, but who knows? And we would like to have the opportunity to hook up to city sewer and water. We actually pay the same taxes for the same value as other places in town do. So we would like the same benefits or the quality that they have. So, it's time the city look at revising their future capital improvements per street and put East 7th or 200 East Street as a priority. Thank you. Any questions?
Are you on the north side of the road? Tim, or you-
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Right next door to my mother.
Oh, I was just gonna ask you that,
Yep.
yeah, okay.
And his mom just ended up having to put one in here, what, 2 years ago, you said?
Yeah, it was probably a little bit longer than that. She just did a new well and septic system. So, yeah, so I know I feel your pain. Okay,
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for coming in,
Thank you,
Diane.
Diane and Ken. Anyone else like to speak to the council on citizen comments? Okay, we'll do reading. Mine died. Reading and approval of minutes from August 10th.
I will move approval of the minutes from our August 10 meeting.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And we have the same condensed version of the August 10th meeting?
I'll move approval of the condensed version of the minutes.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We have the consent agenda consisting of the audit of city bills, gambling report from the American Legion, application for exempt permit from Someplace Safe, and application for exempt permit, which was sent online or via email from Morris Gymnastics, and revenue and expenditure report. And I will move approval of the items on the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Any discussion or any questions on any of the items? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Ordinances and resolution, we have resolution adopting assessment for current services for Best Northland Inn.
I will move approval of adopting assessment for current services.
I will second.
Will this bring us completely up to date then, Blaine?
I think so, yeah, because the water got shut off there.
Okay.
So the utilities are done.
Okay, any further discussion? We'll have roll call vote on the resolution, please.
Councilmember Salvi,
Yes.
Wallers,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Gullickson,
Yes.
Mayor Gay.
Yes. We have a resolution approving 2023 to 25 capital facility grant.
So this, for the transit bus garage facility, and actually, I think I sent out, I don't know if you got that, the
Yeah.
color version of that.
Mhm.
You
Yes.
know, so, as you know, the city council approved having a concept design drawn up with a cost estimate. The only thing is with the cost estimate, they did not include the design. That was a concept design, but there also needs to be design engineering in this project, which there needs to be another 10% added to this. And that's kind of what the engineering architect fees run for the actual design of the project, bidding it out, and then they'll oversee the construction of the facility. So when you look at this, you know, we have an estimated cost of $654,000. 80% of it's going to be funded by the federal government. And, you know, one of the things I've shared with you before is I think they're getting closer to, you know, some more federal stimulus money. Based on what I saw today in the news, I think sometime maybe in September, Congress might vote on that. We know that there was more money that came down for airports and transit and all kinds of stuff. So whether or not we get some additional money out of that for this, we'll have to wait and see. But we were approved to make an application for a grant. So now they're waiting for us to actually make that application for a grant. In order to do that, we had to have a design concept and we had to have an estimate, and that's what this is. So the next step would be for the city council to give us the go-ahead to actually apply for that grant. And then we'll work with the MnDOT people on putting together a grant agreement. Now, currently it's 20% local share, so if you add another 10% on top of this, you're talking about a pretty good chunk of money, you know. But at the same time, in the end, you're gonna have a very nice facility, as you can see in the drawings that, and you know, we talked about what needed to be done. The bottom of the second page is future expansion. That was not our idea. That was actually MnDOT's idea. You know, because when we met with them to talk about, you know, the idea of what we had for the garage, they said, are you putting everything in there that you possibly might want? You know, are you thinking about maybe expanding in the future or not? You know, and it's like, well, okay, well, we'll come up with, you know, possible expansion. So this would actually add a couple extra bays on the end of it. And, you know, we'll work with MnDOT to see how they want to deal with that. But as of right now, you know, the main project is to put on the office. We'll actually take up a bay to help facilitate that office, and then we'll add 2 additional bays on the west side. They're going to be a little bit bigger just because of the nature of having a wash bay and then sizing them the right size, you know, to kind of fit into a pattern is really what the architects look like. So I'm recommending, you know, this is a good project. We know that transit does, you know, COVID was a bad year, but, you know, we're doing 75,000 rides a year with a very, very good transit system. And we know that we're approved for electric bus that Chris is working on. So the future looks bright for the transit system.
You're probably looking at what, about 145,000 is
Yep.
city share roughly.
Yep.
That's not, that's money well spent for a building like that. I don't know that, that's not bad for our share. Even though it is a fair amount of money, I think it isn't a bad amount for the
I just think back at how long they worked out of that small little office in City Hall, and it's almost embarrassing. You know, I've you know, here they're in heaven because they got this nice big office over here. But at the same time, you can just, anybody that drives by here, you know, you've mentioned it. You know, if they're parking here, if they're parking there, well, if they're working out of the, working out of the garage area, and then just the little things like having a place to go in and change in, you know, hang up your coat or whatever it is. I think they did a really good job of looking at what the needs were for transit. They do a lot of training, online training and things like that, so you have a space for that, and yeah, I think it's a good project.
Just looking at this plan, and it shows insulated overhead door on like that meeting room, I just question that being functional in west central Minnesota, even though we're experiencing global warming, to have an insulated overhead door on a room that's considered to be a meeting room, to efficiency wise for heating it.
Well, and we can talk
Whether-
about that in the
but
final
that's-
design, but that's the exact question I asked when we looked at the preliminary. It's like, you know, but they have a better standard of doors now than what they had
Yeah, and
before.
if there's something available or something that's tighter, but just
Right.
experiencing
Yep.
what an overhead door and the loss
No, I had the
on
same
that doesn't
question.
make much sense if we have the bays. But yeah, otherwise it looks great, I think, and yes, for the service we provide with 5-6 buses running at the peak times, I think it's an awesome service that we're able to provide at a minimal cost for the city taxpayers.
Yeah, I agree. It's long overdue. They've operated kind of out of a little cubicle, if you will, and I think it's a good project.
Yeah, it's almost that overhead door, it's almost like that bay is a, you know, if needed, bay for storing a vehicle, and, well, that's not really what it's for, I don't think.
No.
But yeah, you're right, that could certainly be fixed in the final.
Yep.
Yep.
The existing part of the existing bays are just kind of remaking the outside of it, is that what I
Yep.
understand?
And actually, there's 2 doors that are older doors, and so then there was a discussion about updating them to new doors, but I think that was part of a plan that we already had for some maintenance. When you look at them, there's some that have square windows and some have round windows, like oblong windows, and so you can tell which ones are old, which ones are new, and they're talking about just painting the doors. But it could be that there's a couple of them that have to be updated.
Are the existing bays heated?
Yes.
Okay.
The original heat was electric in-floor, and then apparently there's a lightning strike that took it out. And rather than replacing it, they put in overhead heat.
Right.
Is there a wash bay in any of the stalls projected, or, you know?
Yeah, the far west one would be a wash bay.
Okay, I thought I saw that.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, yep. Yeah, I thought I saw that. Yeah, it's a good idea. Yeah, I see that.
Would that, because we don't have a wash bay for any of our other
No,
equipment.
they try to wash some stuff in, I think, the shop area, but that doesn't work out very well, and
Right.
you know, we actually, I think the police department now, we have a deal with Jerry's USAVE they have some cards where they can go down there and wash the squads, you know, so there really isn't a good spot for.
Sure. Would this wash bay be available for other city equipment to, you know, rigs to wash?
I can't imagine why it wouldn't be, depending on how clean they are.
Yeah. Well, it would make sense, we're all
Yeah.
cities, so.
Well, and, you know, keeping a vehicle clean is gonna extend the life of it.
Right.
I guess if we're contemplating or feeling confident that we're gonna expand, maybe if we're looking at upgrading doors, if we can hold off on that to get something that's gonna match in to fit the
Right.
big picture.
Yep.
Just if we, there's a time frame. It looks like 2023 to 2025 is what we're sort of shooting for, looking at this, but as long as it takes to get all the approval. But if we have some stuff comes down the road from federal funding to help us out more, that it gets moved up some. But it's a ways off realistically, isn't it?
Well, you know, we run into this with the airport, so 2023 for the airport would start in the fall of 2022.
Okay.
You know, for federal funding, that's the way that grant funding works, and so we wind up dealing with that. So the grant would be written this next spring, and then there'd be a time frame established to start that work. So it could be that, you know, and we run into this problem all the time because, you know, Minnesota has a construction period. Although it is expanding a lot more with building construction, you know, you're seeing a lot more of that happening in the winter time, especially if you can get a foundation done in you know, this summer, late fall. But it could be that it starts as early as next fall. So we would look at allocating funds for this in the capital outlay program. You know, probably for 2022, depending on what happens with the grant and we still have to go through the process of having them look at the numbers, and then, you know, but when we met with them, you know, the one thing they said, make sure you put in the number you need and make sure you understand if it's gonna be another year, and that's where that contingency comes in. You know, what do they have, 30% contingency, because who knows what's gonna happen with building materials. You know, some are coming down, some are going up, but they told us they never wanna have to look at putting more money into the system. So put in as much as you can, and then, you know, the project should work out under that amount.
So this resolution would allow the city to enter into an agreement with the state of Minnesota. I mean,
Yeah, so we're asking them to give us a grant. And then what they'll do is they'll write up a grant, and then they'll send it back to us and ask us to accept it.
Right.
You know, so
So
that's,
there will be other steps
Yep.
within this.
there should be.
But we are also telling that we will provide the local share if needed, right?
Yes.
20%.
I'll move on that resolution approving the 2023-2025 capital facility grant application.
I will second that. Any further discussion? Looks like a great project. We'll have roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Phillipson,
Yes.
Wallers,
Yes.
Salvi,
Yes.
Mayor Geese.
Yes. And we'll have the added resolution accepting an updated proposal from Precision Concrete Cutting for sidewalk maintenance.
Yeah, you'll remember that we had a resolution before you, and then we talked about West Fifth Street. Jeff Kuhn brought up the fact that West Fifth Street is actually the MnDOT highway. And so then there's a question of whether or not we needed to do any sidewalk maintenance on a MnDOT highway, and whether or not they needed to do the maintenance on sidewalks on the highway. And what we eventually found out is that they're not gonna do this kind of maintenance on the sidewalk on the MnDOT highway, but they will let us do it, but we have to fill out a permit. You know, there's like a one-page permit to fill out to allow us, you know, I can't imagine anybody would even know that we're there doing it, but actually, Matt Freeland was in town today. I talked with him about, you know, when we had requests for proposals to do this work, we only had one company that replied, and that was this company. And we talked about maybe getting some additional quotes for some additional streets and stuff. And so I did talk to him today about some additional roads and stuff like that, but specifically, I wanted to make sure he knew that I was gonna come to you and have you add this one back in. So they're looking at probably coming in about 2 weeks, and then they will start doing all the work that we have lined up, and then I would venture to guess probably at the next council meeting, I might have some additional information for you on some additional roads that we wanna try to do, because it's clear on the map that when we had the inspection done of the sidewalks, that there are some roads that have a lot of spots on them, like East A Street, West Sixth Street. You know, there's in our neighborhood, there's some really bad sidewalks, Bridge Road and stuff, and I'll be bringing those back to you. And it could be that we just put them into a budget for next year. We talked about maybe adding this as a maintenance technique moving forward. And this is just to make sure that we get everything done that we originally looked at.
I will move a resolution accepting the updated proposal from Precision Concrete Cutting for sidewalk maintenance to add back in the West Fifth Street sidewalks that were taken out.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? I guess I would just like to mention, I don't know, I think there was a letter to the editor about that, but I think we want to be careful that we don't give the perception that the city is going to take care of all the
Right.
sidewalks in the whole city.
Right.
Because we're not, right? It's still
No.
homeowners' responsibility by and large.
Yeah, when we got into this, technically sidewalks are the responsibility of a homeowner, but are you gonna identify one piece of sidewalk in front of a property as being out of compliance and do a special assessment project for that one homeowner for $20? Are you gonna make that homeowner go fix that piece themselves and then try to facilitate overseeing all of that? It just made more sense that this is a very uninvasive technique for shaving down these edges, and we looked at, the handicapped level of, a quarter of an inch. And actually, one of the questions I asked Matt was, because I think it was brought up at the last meeting, are we gonna notify property owners that somebody's gonna come on their sidewalk and do maintenance? And the answer is, it would take us we had 832 cracks, basically, that we're gonna be shaving as part of this project. So if you went and found out all those property owners and tried to do up a letter, send it to them, you're just gonna confuse people. And so my question to him was, what happens if a property owner comes out and says, hey, what are you doing on my sidewalk? He goes, we just explain what we're doing. And they go, okay. And they turn around and they walk away, because they don't have to pay for it. If they say, get the heck off my sidewalk, okay, well then he will get it off their sidewalk, and then he'll go to the next one, and then maybe we'll go back and send them a letter to fix their sidewalk. But it just seems like and there's other cities that do this kind of maintenance on the sidewalks within their community. It seems like a really simple way of ensuring. I thought it was interesting reading the letter to the editor, because obviously the person that wrote the letter doesn't read the newspaper, because if they read the newspaper, they would have known that, number one, we surveyed every sidewalk in the city of Morris and identified every bad spot according to a standard, and that we contracted with somebody to come in and start doing the fixing of the sidewalks. And it's like, we've been working on them, because we've had people that have come and wanted to deal with sidewalks, tripping on them, whatever. But I think it's gonna be a very simple thing to try to, smooth out some of these sidewalks. And when it comes to replacing them, then that would be a homeowner's responsibility to replace them. And there are some sidewalks that need to be replaced, and we know that. And there's some sidewalks that they can't shave them off, so they can be mud jacked to level them. And so Jim Dittbenner is going to take care of that. We do mud jacking. We have a budget for mud jacking every year. And there's some sidewalks, because the tree roots are pushed up, they need to be replaced, but they're ours. So if there's a boulevard tree that's pushing up a sidewalk, that's our responsibility, because it's our tree. And then we have to come in and take that sidewalk section out, cut the roots, try to deal with the tree, and then lay a new one in. And so that'll be ours. We'll do some mud jacking. And so, but the overall project is going to wind up having these areas that are fixed. And I just think it's a good way of doing it. And we'll talk on the radio tomorrow about moving forward with that. And we can give general notice out to people, but the other thing is that he said people will see them doing what they're doing, and it's like, hey, can you fix my driveway? Yep. So then you'll pick up, just like, you know, if somebody's paving in an area, they might be doing some extra paving on driveways and stuff like that. So they pick up a little bit of business that way, but it's gonna be interesting to see. I mean, the university does it out at the university, and it works very well. It's not invasive. You know, when you start, if you think about it, if you had to pull out 1 square of sidewalk and then frame it up and relay it and have that settle exactly the same as the 2 squares on either side, it would be almost impossible to do that, whereas this is just gonna be shaved down and then they'll go. You know, it doesn't take them very long at all.
Thank you for the explanation.
I think
I am definitely in favor of this project, but.
And I think too, Mayor, we still should really be open to future projects like this, once this is done, because, you know, I'll play the devil's advocate here, you know, people see that, to Blaine's point, that, you know, how nice that turned out, hey, you did that for my neighbor, then you stopped right here, why don't you do mine? You know, so I think we do have to be open to future situations
Right.
like that.
Well, we've got to walk before we can run, and.
That's right.
You know, we've been talking about sidewalks for a long time. This is kind of a step in, I think, the right direction, and, yeah, we'll see what, you know, the future brings on it. I agree, we keep our minds open, and,
Yep.
any other discussion? on
And
the
just to
resolution?
add in there, just a little radio or newspaper notice to the
Right.
general
Yep.
public on a group saying that we're gonna be starting this, it's gonna take 2 weeks roughly, or 4 weeks, to let the people know, a big notice to everyone.
Well, the other thing I would just add is that, so that, this is just one page of the, and I think everybody, I think you
Yeah.
got this, but,
Yeah.
so when they go out and, he'll actually go out and inspect these sidewalks again, so on this page, you'll see that, you know, he has calculations for what needs to be done to shave off that joint, but he also has on there replace. 11, you know, whatever the address is, so if it's something that can't be fixed with his method, he'll identify it and he'll let us know. So this goes to Jim Dittbenner, and he can go out and look at each one of these addresses and try to figure out, well, how are we gonna take care of this? And if ultimately the sidewalk's gotta be replaced, then we would go to the property owner. But I would venture to guess that a lot of these that he's looked at are either sunk, that have to be mud jacked, or they're near a tree. And he can't shave it down because it's pushed up too far. There's probably very few of them at this point right now that are in the, you know, just total replace category that we wouldn't be responsible for.
Good. Any other discussion on the resolution? Thank you, that's good discussion. We'll have roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Gullikson,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Selby,
Yes.
Waller,
Yes.
Mayor Peters.
Yes. City managers report.
I'll just touch on just a couple things. One, we have the 150th anniversary that's gonna be celebrated during Prairie Pioneer Days, and they've asked if members of the city council and, you know, I know Reggie got asked and I got asked if we would be around during that open house period from 2 to 4, where we're gonna have cake and cupcakes in recognition of the 150th, and I don't know who's gonna be around. If you wanna let me know.
What exact date is it?
September 11th.
I'll be here.
Yep,
I'll be here too.
yep. So it's part of the Prairie Pioneer Days celebration, and the parade will be at night, and then the fireworks will happen pretty much after that, because it's gonna be a
We're
little.
supposed to wear our logoed shirts for that
You
day?
can if you have. I don't know if I still have one. I don't
Who
know.
has a logo shirt?
She said.
I think that
I
was a
think
ploy. I think that was a ploy to get one.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I think I had a couple shirts that, you know, I had a logo embroidered on.
I don't have one.
You know,
I've actually got one made. I had done that D's Needles
D's
just
Needle,
back when
yeah.
I was having some fire department shirts done. Then it was taking them so long to get the
But it's
fire
like-
department, I switched them over to just the city of Marsh, so.
It's like, wear what you normally wear. Well, this is what we normally wear, you know, to city council meetings and stuff.
But it kind of would be nice, because I know Kevin
Yeah.
was out last night serving at the picnic
Yeah.
for UMM, and, I mean, that would have been nice. You were part of the tourism board, I'm assuming. I don't know,
No,
but
actually, it was
who
part-
knew who he was?
Chamber?
Part of the chamber, actually.
Chamber, there you go, okay.
Yeah, I sit
But-
on both boards, but yeah.
But to where, yeah, because, I mean, other other entities are wearing logo. I don't know, do we know anybody that does that?
Deal on some hats.
Somebody
So
that
we
could
could switch hats.
deal
if we're
with
chamber or
shirts.
city or-
Oh,
Wished I knew somebody that had a screen printing business. that could do that.
Yeah, do we know anybody that has a?
Probably could find
Are you
somebody.
sure we want to be wearing them?
Well, maybe that's where they could have a pocket, and then you could slap down the pocket
Okay.
or something.
It's a matter of how fast you could get them.
Well, I don't know.
I know somebody you probably know.
Somebody
Yeah.
would probably know.
I believe it could probably be done.
Yeah, so that's, that's one item I had. Census data, we got our census count, so we were at 5105, which was very nice to see, and the university did a very good job of working with that process to make sure that students were counted, and I think we're good for another 10 years, hopefully.
Were we up or down from the last?
We're down a couple hundred from the last time.
Couple hundred?
But, it's just, the county was down a couple hundred, the city was down a couple hundred, so that's probably where they came from, and now we move on to the next step.
But the funding on that was huge, and I know you've mentioned it previously, but there's an interesting article in the Minneapolis paper Sunday that they figure it's about 150 million over a 10-year cycle that you're gonna lose by falling below that 5,000.
Yeah,
With your state aid,
the
your
five,
different roads,
the
your
five,
different
what
things.
happens with state aid, if you fall under 5,000, and it doesn't happen immediately, but the county would wind up taking over your state aid roads. That's what would happen, so they'd be responsible for them. But state aid is, given, local government aid has a population, calculation in there, but then there's some other calculations for need that might offset some of that, and that's one of the things that we're gonna take a look at. Let's see, but we're working on budgets, so right now I'm collecting budget data from the department heads, and actually we're meeting with a couple different vendors. We've looked at various things, whether it's road projects, things we talked about in the parks. We also looked at, a couple sewer issues that we may want to take a look at, but the next step, and then I'm going to meet with the fire department, because the next thing on their list is a ladder truck. That's going to be a major expense, well over $1 million, probably $1.4 million for a new ladder truck. So that's one of the things that we'll be looking at with them. And yeah, otherwise I would just answer any questions you might have.
Blaine, regarding the census and going from your recommendation or suggestion going from 6 precincts down to 3, is that going to have any impact on the county commissioners' boundaries? I know how they're set and established. if
So
we go from
what I
6
will
to
tell
3.
you is that doesn't come into play. As a city, the city has the right and authority to look at how they set their boundaries, and what happens with the county commissioner districts has nothing to do with us.
Okay.
And that doesn't come into the discussion. Actually, one of the things I'm looking at, we have so many voting precincts. I think I was on a city manager call, and I think, I know Benson has 2, and I think Detroit Lakes had 3. There's bigger cities that maybe have 4. And we're one of the highest number voting precincts, and I don't understand, because when I was here before, we had 3, and Breckenridge has 3. Most cities, where was it that they're talking about? They only had 2. So it's one of those things where you look at not so much where people vote as much as what is your population, what are the precincts. So one of the things that we know and understand is we joined polling places together. So now we only have 3 polling places, and with the advent of machines, you can run everybody through. And quite frankly, what's going to happen in the future is you're going to see more people probably voting before Election Day, and then we're still pushing for mailed-in ballots. And I don't know that that's going to come anytime soon. We're the only voting precincts in Stevens County that don't do mailed-in ballots, and when, you know, I've sat in on the League of Minnesota Cities Election Task Force and their policy committee when we're looking at that, and it's gonna be interesting to see what happens, because the politics of elections is really getting skewed now with the, you know, the divide that we have between different parties. But, you know, this is pretty simple, you know, to look at that. And you know, the other thing is, you don't look at who's currently seated on city councils. We don't look at county commissioner districts at all, because it doesn't matter.
To us.
It's the city.
Right.
What's in the best interest of the citizens of the city? That's what we look at.
Yeah, I guess I just thought that that's the way their boundaries were established, was the only reason I
Yes, to answer Kevin, aren't the
Yeah, so.
commissioners stay within our
So,
precinct guidelines?
so the way it works is we set our boundaries first, and actually the congressional districts have to get set first. So the legislature, you know, is either gonna do that or the courts are gonna do that, because you're not allowed to split like Senate and House districts. So we have to know what those district boundaries are, and more than likely Morris is gonna be in, as a whole, is gonna be in that. But we do ours first, and then once we're done with ours, the county does theirs. But they're not allowed to split a precinct. You
Yeah,
know,
I
so
thought
they
it was-
can't divide us up, but we divided ourselves up into a pie. So we have 6 pieces now, and so then they can take one of each one of those 6 and do whatever they want with them.
Okay.
Which, you know, isn't necessarily, you know, the discussion. You know, what I look at is, you know, what's the best way to facilitate elections? We only have an election, you know, maybe once or twice, depending on what they do with primaries and presidential primaries, you know, a few times every couple of years, and that's it. You know, so what's in the best interest of us to be able to facilitate that?
I think it's a long time coming to make it make sense, make the
Right.
precincts make sense. So I'm glad we're gonna do that. Any other comments or questions on the city manager report? I see the property at the corner of 7th Street and Oregon, I think it is. The house is gone, the sidewalk was ripped up, and this sidewalk's been
Yep, they
replaced.
put in a new one, and
So-
they're gonna put the foundation in for the house.
Nice.
This year yet, and then they'll build it next year.
And the bus.
And the bus is gone.
Bus is gone. Little by little. We have informational items, the census
Well,
report.
Mayor, can we go back to, can we just touch on some other business, or?
Oh, yeah, okay.
I wanted
That's
to,
fine.
I just wanted to bring up a couple things that were brought up by the public today. We talked, you know, we didn't obviously discuss it after they talked about it, but
Yeah.
we had the softball complex, and is there dollars can tourism dollars be applied to that? I was hoping your head would go the other way, Wayne.
No?
What is the rules
Or
for that?
cares.
Is there rules laid out for tourism dollars?
Here we go, Blaine.
Well, because I hear that, no, and then
So-
I'm like,
so-
but we
so
can
one of
pay
the
for
things-
fireworks?
Yeah, well, so there's one event that we consider ours as a city that we're responsible for, and that's Prairie Pioneer Days, and we work together with the chamber on that. So that's the one event that we're actually part of, that we spend money on, fireworks. Actually, you know, we're helping, you know, balance out that Prairie Pioneer Days deal. But so the law is that we're allowed to place a 3% tax on lodging to be used for marketing for tourism. So what is marketing? So that's the question that you come up with. What is marketing?
Well, it's not marketing.
You know, building a building is not marketing. You know, probably fireworks maybe isn't marketing, other than that is our community event of the year.
Unless it costs
You know-
us $225 grand to put a sign out there that says
Right.
Morris Tourism.
Well, and we actually have we actually have a request right now to put up signs, you know, and it's like around town indicating that there's lodging and there's restaurants and stuff, and it's like, well, who's gonna see a sign in Morris, Minnesota? Maybe somebody passing through, but at the same time, you know, we just had Click Content Studios came in and they filmed the fair. They filmed it with video, they filmed it with drone footage, they filmed it with cameras, with the idea that now we have a library of data that we can now market the fair next year, you know, for people to come here and visit for the fair. And so that's what we're focusing on, is that market. So we talk about a 60-mile radius. If you're advertising within a 60-mile radius, are you really gonna find people that are gonna come here as tourists? And then the term that we use is heads on beds. But the one thing I will tell you is that because I just had to look this up because the question came up again, you know, but there's two different kinds of legislation. There's the statutory legislation that gives us the authority to do the 3% for marketing. And then there's special legislation. So when you go down to Minneapolis and you pay for a room down there, you're gonna pay a lot. It may be 17% or whatever it is. They're allowed to collect that money for the Target Center or other things. So they got special legislation from the state of Minnesota to collect lodging tax to pay for other things. But that's not what we have. You know, we have to follow the statutory rule on it. You know, and realistically, the best thing that we can be doing is to put together marketing strategies for trying to get people to come out to Morris to stay, whether it's the fair or, I mean, they did video out at the flower gardens, you know, to try to get people to come out here for that, or hunting or fishing or you know, ag tourism is a big issue. And so that's really what the rule is on that.
Just so the rest of the council knows, you know, I sit on the tourism board, as you know, and I've been very happy and very impressed with our relationship with Click so far. Very professional.
Yeah, they do a very good job.
Their follow-up is fantastic. I mean, they keep us in the loop on what they're doing and what's been done, and I think we're getting our money's worth.
You know, and
Just,
as a follow-up to what you're talking about, Brian, the softball complex, there's no argument, it's a great project. The issue is that in my budget guidance to the city council, what did I say? We need to have at least $200,000 in our capital outlay fund each year for our budget. $200,000. That's for police cars, that's for dump trucks, that's for putting in tennis courts, that's for doing everything that we do in the city. You know, and it doesn't go, I mean, we're a poor community, and a lot of people don't understand that. So when you look at local government aid, you know, when we have a $4.4 million budget and what is it, $211,000 comes from local government aid. You know, it's 60% of our budget. So what did we get more out of the legislature? $11,000. That's what we got more for next year. So we have to try to figure out how taxes in Morris pay for about 18% of our general fund budget. Taxes do. So most people don't understand that. We're funded by the state through local government aid. And so then we own our parks. We own Wells Park, we own Chiswick, we own Eastside Park, Green River, we own all these parks. We're not partners in these parks at all. And, you know, so one of the things I've said is there's a brand new complex that was built and we can't be a partner in it. When we gave $150,000 last year, what I said was, we can't be a partner in this project moving forward. We're not gonna do maintenance, we're not gonna continue fund. You know, we found $150,000, and where did we find it? Liquor store sales. That's exactly how I presented it.
Yeah, that's what it was.
COVID made money for our liquor store. So we were lucky in that sense, how to do that. But we still have to focus on all the other stuff that we do.
Yeah, you know, I get
Yeah.
that. I get that. And we were doing it last year too, and we made that contribution through the community ed.
And we
Yeah,
did it through
yeah,
community
yeah.
ed.
And I mean, community ed is for the city.
We are a partner in community ed, and we
Right.
provide them funding each year.
Right, and I think, you know, I just wanted to make sure that we were talking about it again and keeping that, you know, if there was a possibility or if there was money available, you know, I just wanted to go over it, make sure, see if there was anything there, if there's anything in the CARES money, if there's anything, you know, because it is a good project and it does,
It
you
is
know,
a
for the
very good
city, for
project.
the community ed, so I want to just keep that forefront in our minds. Also, the 7th Street or, that's not a project, I'm sorry, the 7th Street question there. Where exactly does the water sewer end? Does it end at the ball fields?
At the ball fields.
At ball fields? And if I'm not mistaken, I know everything in town that we do, we assess the homeowner. If you're coming in and we're putting, redoing the road and putting in the water and sewer lines and all that, we're assessing the homeowner. So I kind of got the idea that they kind of think that we're gonna bring it down there and the city is gonna pay for it all and they're just gonna be able to hook up. I don't know if that's exactly what, maybe not, but that project is gonna be, if we would happen to take up a project like that, or the 7th Street, that is gonna be assessed to the homeowners, correct?
Well, the water and sewer is the responsibility of the homeowners from our main all the way into the property. And you know, this question comes up a number of times each year, and it always comes up when a septic tank fails. You know, we had the neighborhood out by Pomney Terre where I think 3 of them failed at the same time, and that was the closest we've come to a neighborhood petitioning to have us bring
Yeah, I
water
remember
and
seeing
sewer to them. If 100% of the property owners petition to have water and sewer brought to them, then we can do that project. But if it's less than that, then we have to figure out how to do that, because it does get assessed to the property owners, and we have to be able to prove in court that
Yes, yeah.
there's a benefit to that property
Right.
equal to the amount that we invested in that.
And we do that with every
That's right.
project.
We do it with every
With every
project,
project,
so-
so I mean,
But at the same time, Jeff Kuhn has identified the potential for federal funding
Correct.
for a project on 7th Street that can be tied, but federal funding is out a couple years. So in this
Right.
case, right now, we're talking about probably 2024. And then the idea, and actually, you know, I think I talked about this a little bit where, you know, maybe now is the time to establish a project so we actually start looking at the engineering of
I
what-
guess that's what
what
kind
it
of what I
would
was
take,
thinking
because-
too, that we should do that, establish a project that we can get some project costs
Yeah.
on. The homeowners can get a kind of an idea that, hey, if this is gonna happen, this is could be the assessable amount. It might change a few minds. I mean, if you're gonna put 24/5 into your own sewer system, and you're gonna get assessed, say, 15 to 20 on the project, you know, where do you stand with that? Plus, now you have to pay for your city sewer forever. So, I mean, you know, is it really something that they really, you know, do they really want it, or does it just really sound good? So I'm with you. I think we
Well,
should establish.
they
a
don't
project that we're-
understand,
Right.
you know, because actually there's a discussion about whether or not it was mandated that we provide them water and sewer. And we went back and looked at the documentation. It was like there was I think it was a 7-year period that we weren't allowed to do a water and sewer project and make them take it.
Right.
But we do have some rules on our book in the city where if you're near a water and sewer line, you need to connect up to it. You know, you can't just continue having a septic tank and stuff. But this is a huge project because you're talking about going all the way to the end, probably picking up the trailer court and then bringing it across Highway 28 over onto the north side of the road, picking up Hillside Edition, which is one of the newest subdivisions that they have wells and septic tanks there, and then maybe picking up the stuff that's down on the edge, you know, and one of the comments that was made about, you know, so we do have the American Rescue Plan money, about $560,000. We can use it for water and sewer. And so one of the things I suggested is we use it to run a water line up County 5 to Northridge Drive, and then the county can hook into it. We know that Jim Riley and Sons wants to hook into it. I mean, the co-op should maybe look at hooking into it. You know, we actually talked about the potential, if you ever had a fire out there, they're on a well.
Yeah.
You know, there's no water near them, but we're not talking about running it down Northridge Drive yet, but the next project, follow-on project, could be a link of that. You know, and that's just good business for the future, trying to
Yeah.
figure out how to do it.
Yeah, that's for
Yep.
sure.
Well, East Seventh Street is in part of our 5-year, I think it's 5 years
Yeah.
out anyway.
Yeah, well, we know something's gonna have to happen with it.
Well,
And
yeah.
like I said, now's the time to develop the project, and
Right.
Jeff's been working on it, and I can almost guarantee you when that federal, I mean, they're talking 3.5 trillion in whatever money, but, you know, they're talking major money for infrastructure, roads, bridges and stuff, and if they do it like they did before, they'll divvy it out to states, and the states will divvy it out to projects, and the best thing that we can have is, like with Oregon Avenue, we had a project, and
Yeah.
it's like, hey, there's $1 million available, but it's gotta be for a shovel-ready project. It's
Right.
like, okay, we're good, so we
And
got-
that's what I agree. I mean, I
Yeah.
think we should be doing that. And, you know, I know that when she mentioned that we were looking at that project later on and they'd rather have it done sooner, but we just can't afford to do those things in a rush situation where we can't get the federal funding.
Well, and I
Just,
think,
you know, it would cost
Right.
the homeowners
Yeah,
way too much money.
we couldn't
the
do it
city
without
way
it,
too much money.
and
So-
that assessment project would not look pretty.
yeah, I sympathize
You
with
know,
her
in
situation,
the past,
but
we've
You're right.
discussed this quite a bit. Weren't we planning to somehow let the homeowners amortize their, like, they just put in a new well this year, you know, maybe they wouldn't have to hook up to city water for a while. And then likewise, there wouldn't be an assessment on that for a while, but once they hook up, then the assessment would kick in. Did we kind of discuss that at one time?
I don't know if we
I don't
discussed
remember
that, but we,
discussing that.
No?
we talked, what we did discuss is that if you just put in a brand new septic tank and then we brought sewer across to you and made you hook up, that would never fly in court. You know, cause it's like they just invested money in a sewer. And so I think what we talked about was the age of your sewer system would dictate maybe what type of assessment you might have to pay. You know, because you couldn't give them 100% assessment, but then who's gonna pick up the balance
Like,
of that?
but then the city would really have to pick up, everybody else would have to pick up the
And then
balance.
some of those neighbor, you know, if we do the road and and they don't wanna hook up yet, you know, it could be that we stub in the lines, cause there's some cul-de-sacs. But then where do you, you know, that's part of the engineering, where do you stub in the lines? Cause their water and sewers in their backyards,
Yeah. Yeah.
not in their front yards.
Right.
yeah,
But
that's,
we've done backyard sewers before, you know, I have one in
Well,
my,
and isn't
my
that kind of
property.
purpose of why you said that that you need to petition 100% or more?
Right.
Or right around that of the
Well,
neighborhood
and
because
so what
of
I say to
the
people.
different levels of people's ages of their systems
Right.
and what they've invested.
So
in.
what I always say to people when they ask me that question, when am I gonna get water and sewer? My answer is, when you ask me to bring it to you, cause you have to pay for it. We're not gonna put, you know, and the comment was made tonight about paying taxes. Well, I just got done telling you, you know, our taxes on the general operation of the city is about 18% of what we spend. So what do taxes go for? You know, they go for the library that's here, the help that we gave to businesses. So you got a grocery store or, you know, whatever it is, you know, they drive in on streets that we maintain, all those kind of things. And obviously, you know, once they came in the city limits, they have law enforcement that's there 24 hours a day versus, you know, a deputy that might be on call or whatever, but, you know, so the bottom line is, yeah, we have to figure out where all the money's gonna go that we have, and that's part of the budget process. So we'll throw everything on the table and take a look at it and just try to figure out, you know, what we have. The one thing I would just add that I didn't realize, but the DNR inspected our parks. And so I've got a listing from the DNR of some things that we need to consider in our parks. And the thing that surprised me is Wells Park, East Side Park, Chiswick Park, Pomni Terre Park, all of those were funded at some point with federal and state money. And so there's requirements that we have to meet. And the swimming pool is no longer there at Pomni Terre Park. Well, that was funded through a project. And so it's like, well, we're not putting it back. But one of the things that came up was handicapped accessibility to, we've been talking about that in the park department. And it actually was like an eye opener that we have little playground pieces everywhere. And we talked about consolidating them into a bigger playground set. And then you could have an access to it that's handicapped accessible. But there's there's picnic shelters, there's playground sets that are not accessible. And that's one of the things they look at when they come and inspect. But I didn't know Wells Park and the Chiswick complex had funding from federal and state grants. And we actually have signs. There's a sign on East Side Park that you'll see a little brown sign that says funded by, yeah, it's a little state of Minnesota sign.
All right, that's all I had. I just wanted to make sure we kept the softball deal in our thoughts when we're going forward with our budget guidance, so.
Yeah. There was talk about the road out to Chiswick is pretty rough. Don't we have a project that is actually in the works right now? To
Yeah.
7th Street?
Yeah, there's a long range one, but there's a shorter term one for doing some maintenance on 7th Street.
Yeah. Mail and overlay or something, or?
I don't
I don't think it's.
I don't think mill and overlays
No?
on there. I think the only thing that I'm familiar with is the long range one, the 5-year one.
Oh, I thought
The
there was a
5-year
shorter
plan.
Because I know,
It was just paved not
But-
that long ago.
and that's a state aid road.
Yeah.
Again,
So
if
Far
there's,
away.
there's state funding that's available
Not-
on that too.
Not from, Columbia on, it wasn't. Isn't that right?
The thing about this, the plan that we have, if funds do become available, I think we need to be flexible enough to maybe move something up
Oh, yeah.
a bit.
I agree
Right.
with
And I think
that,
that's what
for
everybody's
sure.
talking about here, so.
Yeah.
So keep the plan, get the
Yep.
plans rolling.
Shovel
so
ready,
that-
Keep
yeah.
the
is a
plans
key, if the money comes.
I think it is.
Like you say, that $1 million down here, that we had a project that was ready to go, that when they
Right.
come with the money, yes, we have something, so.
Yep.
Doing some of the legwork now, that's not gonna cost us a lot of money, but. yeah,
Needs
I
to be done anyway.
Definitely think there's gonna be some projects the next couple of years that we can take advantage of. hopefully.
Right, yeah, I guess I would certainly agree, as long as the money's not throwaway money, where we do it, and it's, let's call it shovel-ready, but if no grant comes, can we just put it on a shelf and not do it again when we do the project, I think that's pretty important, that we don't throw it away.
Yep.
All right, good discussion. Any other business for the council? We had, census report, league fall forums, and, hello to Morris from Zerbeck.
Yeah, so we'll do if you can stay for like 5 minutes, Chris is gonna tape a hello that he's gonna take with him to Zarbeck and visit with him and then, if you haven't noticed, the solar's up on the liquor store.
It's not, it's just up, it's not operating yet.
It's not connected yet.
Yeah.
Is that, we talked about, especially on the library, where people could actually see, a visual on, that, hey, this is how much electricity
Yeah,
is
that's
being
plan is to
generated.
have a monitor probably in each one of our buildings that you can see what the production of that solar array is.
Cool.
Now, that
And then-
solar array is gonna be significantly bigger than the other one, just because of the heating situation we have in the liquor store itself, right? I mean, all those coolers generate a lot of heat, am I right on that, Chris? That it's designed
Well,
accordingly, or?
it's designed based on how much room was on the roof.
Oh,
We questioned that, why it wasn't
We could have
bigger,
used a
because
lot
that's where
more,
there's a
but we
lot
didn't
more
have enough
electricity.
room on the roof.
Unless we
so we
expand.
maxed out.
So if we
capacity.
expand, we make it south-facing?
Yeah. To pick up at the right angle.
That looks good.
Okay, that's not part of the meeting, the
Nope.
photo op. Any other information to come before this council? All right, great. Meeting adjourned.